Hello students. In this module of research methodology, we have already reached the fourth lecture of this module. In the previous lectures, we had learned about the concept of research design. We had learned the various ways through which we make our own research designs. Then we went on to understand the various nuances of data collection and the ways and means in which the primary data as well as the secondary data is collected. In the third lecture, the emphasis was on the observational methods of research, and in this lecture, we would be dealing with the other intricate models of research design which are necessary for a fruitful research study. Specifically, in this lecture, we would understand the uses of schedules and questionnaires which are used as modes of a good data collection in any good research design. This research would make you familiar with the concepts and techniques which are used while employing a schedule and a questionnaire method, and this research process will in turn enable you to understand how a conclusive research study is conducted using our schedules and questionnaires. So to begin with, you would be primarily learning about the concepts of conclusive research, the processes of refining management problem into measurement questions, the instrumentation design and layout, the various communication approaches through which you would use a questionnaire and a schedule method, the principles of designing the questionnaire and framing of the same, the recall and memory decay concepts, the responses which we have towards various strategies, as well as the data which are analyzed through the method of schedules. So what is meant by a conclusive research? Now in this experiment we see an overly keen research scientist coming to his colleague who is already conducting a research study, and he says, "You won't believe, Anderson, the experiment of this results are conclusive." Conclusive, I tell you. This very process shows how enthusiastic the researcher is about the conclusive research findings which he had found in his research study. But does a conclusive research study imply the end of a research process? Or does it mean that in order to conduct a conclusive research study, you need to carry on more and more? To find this, we'll deal in detail with what is a conclusive research study. Now, conclusive research study is a highly structured research method, and it demands a structured data collection method. It is a highly structured research method, that is, you go with a certain amount of frameworks in mind, and you know when and where to prioritize so that you can conduct your research process in a structured manner. And it demands a structured data collection process. You cannot take this research process lightly because this research process is not flexible enough. So what happens is, in this research method, we collect the data in a very systematic manner. The collection of the systematic preservation of the data itself implies that from the beginning or the starting of this particular research, you have your frameworks or your guidelines on point with your research design. Now this research is made to assist the researcher in the decision-making process, which helps him to determine, evaluate, and select the best course of action in a given situation. In order to make a research study accurate, we need to have certain framework, certain hypothesis, certain amount of a good data process which is carried out in order to prove that we have carried our research processes effectively. For example, if we were to conduct an experiment where we are testing the types of soil and we're finding out which soil is good for growing cotton. Now, we get our samples of soil. We get sandy soil, loamy soil, black alluvial soil, and so on and so forth. Now, each of these processes, we use our variables, that is, we use our seeds, and then we let the external variables of fertilizers, the sun, and water, the atmospheric conditions to work up on its own in order to see whether the cotton plant grows or not. Now what is happening here is that this process is actually being used for larger samples. Now in the larger samples, it is not possible for you to individually go and plot each and every seedling. So what you're doing is, you are using a conclusive research and you're using it to determine from your primary source that okay, black alluvial soil is the best soil for growing cotton. So in other words, you are determining and evaluating, because the cotton plant has not flourished where there is loamy soil, the cotton plant has not flourished where there is too much of water and all. So you are selecting the best course of action in the given situation. And what is your situation? To grow cotton and get the best yield. Now this method is based on large representative samples and the collected data are subjected to quantitative analysis. Each plot of soil is measured. Each plot of soil is put to test whether they yield a good variety of cotton or not. So what you're doing? You are using your quantitative analysis to see whether the samples which you have experimented upon are standing to your specified hypothesis whether the black alluvial soil is indeed good for your cotton plantation or not. And then you are examining the relationship that you cannot grow cotton in sandy soil, you cannot grow cotton in a wet soil, you cannot grow cotton in a soil which is very rocky by nature, you need fertile black alluvial soil. Now this method is best attained through the questionnaire method, where you allow the research scientists to make their observations based on your questions, because at times, given the state of hybridization and all, we might use certain techniques to improve the soil quality and artificially induce the growth of cotton. So all of these factors with the questions you are looking forward to will be seen in the questionnaire method, and from there you gather your valid and relevant data for your type of research. Now, how would you refine the management of problems to measurement of questions? So this is a matrix, and in this matrix we are showing that to each management problem and to each research problem there is also an investigative question and there is also a measurement question. So these processes are interconnected to each other. Now, what is a management problem? Now, the management problem is the problem or opportunity situation that a management faces, and uncertainty that needs to be reduced so that the decision is sound. So, the management, that is, the management problem is the problem or opportunity that a management faces. Now, who are the management? The person or the authorities who are running your project study, your sample study. Now, management problems arises in a situation where the management understands that there is a certain amount of disruption in the authority and that there needs to be a reduction of the decision in order to get a better outcome. For example, here we have shown a factory situation where the management persons are in a conversation and they are discussing how a larger number of workers are causing a greater number of problems. Now, how is that possible? For example, today I open a college and I have a capacity of 100 staff, right? So, in my college, I have a capacity of, say, 200 students who can be accommodated or divided in that particular college. Now, I have already the intake of 100 teachers. So, because it is a college, I do not need a teacher to teach on a one-on-one basis. A proper ratio should be maintained between the amount of students and the amount of tutors assigned to each slot of students. But then I carry on with my process of running the college. Now, over a period of time, what will I see is that the overall working conditions of the college is deteriorating. The reason being, we have ample number of teachers with no classes to teach. So we will have a disruption in the overall work ethics where overzealous teacher will try to take the classes of the other teachers. That is one problem. The second problem is providing a sitting capacity of 100 teachers requires you to have 100 cabins, 100 spaces, 100 proper work cubicles where the teachers can sit. Now, what does it call for? It calls for an excess amount of, say, electricity consumption. It calls for an excess amount of salary which has to be paid. It also calls for demotivation in the teachers themselves who would rather spend the day doing idyllic work than perform well in a concentrated manner. So, what is the solution for this? This is the management problem. The solution which I will have is the part in which I would discuss my research problem. So, the management problem is nothing but it is the situation which makes the authority buckle up to know that there is a gap which is leading to losses in their current setup. So paying 100 teachers would require me of shelling a salary to all of those 100 teachers, and this would imply that for 200 students, if I allot say 5 or say even 10 teachers, that is more than sufficient to give a thorough knowledge impartition to the students. So what would I do? This solution will be addressed in your research study. So before going to your research problem, the awareness that there is a problem which needs to be addressed, there's an elephant in the room which needs to be addressed, is the first thing we see in these kind of research designs. So in a factory-like setting, the same thing will happen. There will be ethical issues. Then what happens is, better advancement of technological issues will be at stake, because the more amount of mechanical labor which you have to afford is not possible due to the surplus in the organic labor which you are having. So instead of upgrading your infrastructure, that amount is simply going in providing the salaries and providing the utilities which are used by your workers in order to carry on with your factory, and thereby it leads to a loss of revenue. Now, so you have understood the problem. This managerial problem is now translated into a form that can be researched to a solution. So your research problem is already found. That is, you know now in which direction you should conduct your study. Now, locating the research problem also helps in identifying the objectives of the study, which in turn helps in getting insights into the nature of the problem and then to make necessary amends. So, instead of paying in the college setup, instead of paying my 100 professors a full-fledged salary for doing nothing the whole day, what will I do? I will engage them on a guest faculty basis. That is, only when you have a class, you come, you deliver your lecture, and on that grounds you will be paid. So this is nothing. What you're doing, you already got your research problem, that is how to conduct the study in a better and efficient manner while reducing the cost of running the college or reducing the cost of running the factory while optimizing the source of revenue in the college or factory setup. So initially, we start off with a process of observation. So in this thing, you see, this is the primal worker in the factory setup. This is the man who manages the worker. This is the man who manages the manager who manages the worker. Who is this person? This is the man who manages the man who manages the man who manages the man who manages the worker. This we leave aside. Cannot be even considered. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 extra workers imply the percentage to which it is already affecting your income design. Now, in the college setup, to teach a subject of English, you have someone who will look after the curriculum process, who will look after the designing of the question paper, the methodology, the designing of the model papers, who will help in the designation of the correction of papers. Then you will have someone who will help in the disruption of marks. Then you will have someone who will engage in the PTA meeting. Now what is happening in all of these? All of these were actually hired to deliver one goal. And that one goal was to teach the subject of English. Now, in this situation, that is not happening. So, what is happening? Firstly, the one who is conducting PTA meetings is in a already demotivated state, that he was brought in this college to teach English, but he has to wait for weekly and monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings in order to conduct the PTA meetings, but he has to come to college regularly and do what? Wait for whole day to do menial work, which even for that a clerk or a peon is also hired. So now you have located the problem that there is an ample amount of stuff which is there. So next is the objective. What will be the objective of your study then? Will be to reduce the amount of labor in order to get better mechanical labor and to increase the revenue with minimum effect on the production cost. Now you'll get insights and the nature of the problem. You'll get insights that once there was a walk-in hiring spree, so anyone and everyone who were eligible without a proper screening test, everyone was hired. Or it could be such that the college was in a good state and without a proper HR team, the college kept on hiring or the factory kept on hiring because it went on an emotional spree of hiring a worker, then his family, then his extended family, and so on and forth. So now you'll make necessary amends. How? You might give the pink slip, give them a 3-month period of time, and you tell them that, okay, within 3 months you see how can you look for better avenues because we are sold out. Or in the college, you can ask the lecturers, how can you contribute more towards my college so that we get better revenue. So if a staff is very insistent, you might tell them, okay, go get more students and then we'll see on how we can go about with it. Getting of more students, the necessary amends implies more minting in of revenue. So definitely you have the due towards that person that, okay, with the production of more demand and supply curve, we will have a better revenue flow and through which probably we can give that worker a chance. So what is happening is you are making the necessary amends in your research process. The next is the investigative question. The researcher needs to convert the research problem into specific investigative questions, the answers to which will provide sufficient detail and coverage of the research question. So the researcher needs to convert the research problem into specific investigative questions. What do I want to find out? I want to find out what is the problem with this huge location of employers in this college. Where could I look for answers? That is a tricky question. So you start first talking with the management, you start talking with the persons who are dispersing the pay, you start talking with your employees and so on and forth. Now what do you find out? You find out that a disparity exists. The management is simply hiring without knowing the ground reality of how the people who are actually dispersing the pay are doing their finance and shelling out the money. So where could you look for the answers? You look for answers from your primary data on how certain situations these methods were tackled. You could then start using your secondary resources and give newer insights into the entire process on how to deal with a surplus of staff, how to engage them, say, for the process of procuring the newer facilities. So for example, in the factory, if you are procuring new machines, it does not imply that you do not need staff. So you will start giving skill training. You will make your staff competent enough so that they are able to use the digital resources to the optimum level. Now what happens is when the staff is using their skills and competence to use the machines. Your production has increased manifold. Now with your production increase, what is happening is, if you were getting 100 rupees by selling a candy, now because of the employment of the machines, what is happening is, you are producing 1,000 candies at the same rate. Now with 1,000 candies, you still can manage out of the 100 at least 50 to 60 employees whose primary work will be to help in the procuring, help in the running, help in the maintenance of the machine. Now what is happening in this process? The employee structure is not disrupted, but each employer's skill is optimized to the maximum, right? So next we go to the measurement questions. Now these are the questions which are finally administered by the researchers to the respondents in order to gather the necessary information to resolve the management problem. So again, you go back and you ask them, how are you dealing with the changes? You've already identified the management problem, you have identified your research problem, you have gone through the investigation mode. Now is the time when you actually measure the output which you have received by the input which you have provided. So what is happening here? You go and you ask firstly the management that, sir, have I been able to solve your problem or not? Has your revenue increased? Are you using the capital, extra capital which you are getting from the usage of the digital technology as in case of factories, or are you able to utilize the extra facilities which you are getting by the procurement of a larger amount of students in your college setup? So after that, then there's this analysis part. So overall, how you're feeling about the research process? How do you feel? You feel very optimistic about your company or college's future? You feel mildly optimistic? You are worried there is no changes whatsoever, or the changes could have been done in a better way? If so, please lend us your suggestion in which we can help for a boost, or we can facilitate a growth into your company and college's total output. So these are the measurement questions. Now we come to the questionnaire method. Now a questionnaire is nothing but a formalized schedule for collecting data. A formalized schedule implies that a questionnaire consists of a number of questions that are printed or typed in a definite order or in a set of forms. In this method, the questionnaire is usually sent to the respondents with a request to answer and return the questions. For example, if today I were to do a market study on how a particular branding of scooter is doing in the market. Now what will we do? We will set up a questionnaire, because it is not possible for us to go into every household and ask them, have you heard of a scooter? Do you know what a scooter looks like? And so on and forth. It's not possible to do that. So we go into firstly setting up the questions for our study. Now, when we set up the questions for our study, they are printed in a definite format, and if it is a questionnaire method, we expect the respondents to give answers to the asked questions immediately. If it is a schedule, then I'll come to it later, we use another person to do the same for you. So basically, today, if I were to launch a scooter in the market, I will send sales guys or survey researchers in designated places, and I'll ask them, uh, from where did you hear about the scooter? And the second question I might ask you, have you heard about the brand name Honda? And do you know how many years Honda has been leading the market in the production of scooter? So all of these will have varied answers. And we might again ask additional question. What is your family's income group? What age do you belong? What sex? Because all of these are the predominant factors which will lead us to know whether that person is capable of buying our scooter or not. Now typically the questionnaire planning happens this way. Firstly, you specify the information needed. The information needed is what? That you need to know how will you know that whether a scooter is required in an Indian household or not. Whether people do still need scooters in a Indian social setting where cars are in range. Now specify the type of interviewing method. You will go and you will do surveys. Now you will specify either it can be personal method where you can go hand over the questionnaire, wait outside their office, wait outside their college, ask them to send it to you, or you can personally collect it and all. Determine the content of individual questions. So you don't just go outside the college and you ask how much do you earn? What is your CTC at the end of the month which you draw from this college. So the content will vary to the individual group to which you are catering to. Now design the question to overcome the respondent's inability and unwillingness to answer. Obviously, if you ask a student, how much are you earning? Or if you ask a peon, how much are you earning? Or if you ask the management boss, the trustees, how much are you earning revenue? So this will lead to an internal clash. So you decide the question structure first. You decide the question structure basically on ways you find that it would be appropriate to ask the questions. To do the question structure properly, you need proper question wording. With that, you arrange the questions excuse me, in a proper order. That is, how would you arrange the questions? The questionnaire shouldn't be too lengthy, that it requires participants to sit and keep on writing all the answers. No, they are not sitting for an exam. Your job is to get a condensed and crisp questionnaire which will give you the maximum data as much as possible. So you identify the format and layout, whether you will be sending it via mail, whether you will be sending it via post, whether you will be sending it hand to hand, door to door, whether you will be sending it through internet agencies, whether you will be using websites like YouTube and all, so that before a person says something, he or she has to take up the questionnaire and only then he could go and see whatever song he desires to see and all. Then you reproduce the questionnaire. You keep on reproducing the questionnaire. You keep on screening the questionnaire until and unless a time comes when you know that a person is actually genuinely answering to our questions and he is giving us constructive criticisms on how to carry on with the process. So you are eliminating the pre-test, the bugs of the process or the slacks, the period where your questionnaire is slowed down by this kind of pre-testing process, and then on what is happening is you are dispersing the questionnaire in order to get a quick access to the desired questions. So, in other words, In the planning of a questionnaire, for example, you want to ask someone, which brand of detergent do you find better? Do you like Ariel or do you like Surf Excel? So you ask them, have you heard about Ariel? Have you heard about Surf Excel? Do you know what a front load or a top load can do to your washing? Do you know both Ariel and Surf Excel has front load, top loads and whatever loads kind of features? And do you know what are these actions meant for? Yes, no, you will know. Then you realize that you are asking too many unnecessary questions. So you go to your main point. Give 5 reasons why you prefer Ariel than Surf Excel. Now what will happen? Your people will write in shortcuts. Say they will I like Surf more. Now which is Surf? What Surf? Ariel is also called Surf. By some households, Surf Excel is also called Surf. So you need clarity. So you are eliminating the bugs that if you give such kind of lengthy questions, the respondents lose interest and they do not give you a proper answer. So all of these factors are kept in mind while conducting the questionnaire planning. Now we come to the instrument design and layout aspect. Now instrument design is carried out firstly through investigative questions. When, where, how, why, these are very important. Then you decide on the strategy of planning your questionnaire and also come up with ways and means of analyzing your questionnaire. You have construction of questions, you have pre-testing of individual questions, you have construction of the instruments and pre-test of the instrument. Now repetition of steps 4, 5, 6 and 7 are essential for a better quality of the questions which are asked and also a better accuracy through which you can answer the requisite questions. So basically, in order to get a thorough understanding of a proper questionnaire, you need to keep on constructing the questions to eliminate bugs. You need to keep on testing these questions on different individuals because each individual will have his or her own input. Then you have the different measures, the instruments through which you will conduct this research and note that, okay, this questionnaire is working out, and the pre-testing of these questionnaires will enable you to understand your flaws through which this questionnaire is failing, and you'll also understand the means by which you can improve it. Now we come to the major strategic decisions. So the first step in designing and layout of the questionnaire is dealing on strategy. What is this strategy? Strategy is nothing but no conspiracy and all, but it's simply your mode of action. What mode of action you will use in order to get the maximum output. So the major strategic designs are in the form of the type of data, the communication approach and the questionnaire structure. So in any designation of a questionnaire, you go on with certain types of approach. So the first approach is the type of data. Now, what is data? Data is nothing but the systematic collection of the facts which will enable you to conduct your research study. Now, data are of nominal type, ordinal type, ratio and interval type. So now, of this entire flow chart, the nominal is the starting category. That is, nominal data has no ordering or direction. For example, if you want to know the marital status of a person or a type of car owned, these are very nominal things. They can be even overlooked, but it's good to know it, right? So then we come to the ordinal data. That is service quality rating, student letter grades. So here in ordinal data, we are more concerned with rankings, we are more concerned with orders or scaling, and we are more concerned with the measurement of the work which we are doing. For example, service quality rating. If you want to know, if you purchase a Maruti car, right? Now this car, you will see that it has a mushroom growth of service centers. Suppose this car was purchased in Delhi. Now you take the car for a long tour. Now you take the car from Delhi, you plan to go to say Jammu. Now what will you do? You will follow a long stretch because probably it's a pleasure trip you're taking. So through the tiny hamlets of Punjab, when you pass by, you will see there are lots of Maruti service centers, right? So when you pass through pockets of Jalandhar, pockets of Ropar, pockets of other places, as you will see in Ludhiana, you will see there are Maruti service centers. Go, then you find the hills and you reach Jammu. Now, the actual test will lie of your service quality, whether if there is a disruption, is there a service center in Jammu? If yes, is it a serviceable service center? If not, what is happening? You will get a questionnaire in the company website, and what you will do, you will just go and you'll give your feedback. I traveled from say Delhi till Jammu and I got a huge amount of service centers in between pockets, but once I reached Jammu, there was only one service center. Now the researcher will ask you, were there persons available in the center? From which place did you buy the car? Were they serviceable? Did they address to your problems? Did they give a correct solution to your problems? Was your car serviced properly? All of these. In case there is a negative rating that no, there is this only service center in Jammu, and in a place like that, I am not able to get a proper servicing center. So what is happening is, your points would go down. Compare it with another brand, say Honda. Now, again you find in the popular pockets too much of mushroom growth of service centers of Honda. Once you reach Jammu, you will find that there is a Honda service center which is always shut down. Now what is happening? Your perception has changed, and in a place where you cannot decide what to do, either to move or leave the car, you will go and ask the Maruti service providers to give you some sort of help or respite so that you could carry on with your onward journey. Now, if they give you the necessary help which is required, then again a comparison comes that probably Honda cars are better than Maruti cars, or Maruti cars are better than Honda cars because you get proper service centers even in the farthest corners of the country. So and forth. So what is this? This is an ordinal data. This is the measurement you are showing. So what will you rate the Honda cars or the Maruti cars? You will say, okay, because I didn't get the service center, so now instead of 10, though I prefer Honda cars more than Maruti cars, what will happen? Honda has lost this slot, I'll give a 7 or I'll give a 5. And what about Maruti? My perception about Maruti was probably not that good, or it was very good. I give 10 on 10 or I give an 8 out of 10. Right? Similarly, it goes for students' letter grades. What I teach you, the quality of my teaching today will be determined on the grades you get. I might be a very meritorious student in my own right, but if I'm not able to explain concepts to you in a practical manner, in an easily understandable manner, I fail as a teacher. So, again, that is a subjective thing. Now, you will have order or scaling. That is, each teacher will have certain targets to be met. Now what happens is, that teacher would try his or her best to explain things in very simple manner so that it has a direct impact on the desired target which is being set up by the company. So ordinal data basically deals with the measurements or rankings of any uh, study you undergo. Then we have interval data. Interval data are the differences between measurements but no through zero. For example, temperature in Fahrenheit, standardized exam score. Interval data. So, you take your report card, you have classes. Say to 60%, to 100% you score first division. From 59% till 50% you score second division. From 49% till 30% you score third division. And the rest is the pass class. That means you have either, with grace marks you have passed your exam, so that's the pass class. And fail is you need to reappear because fail word is supposedly banned in the Indian academia, but it's still implemented till this day. So again, the temperature in Fahrenheit. You compare, you keep a specimen and you see the changes in the temperature. How many degrees it has escalated or how many degrees it has come down. So that is it. Then ratio. Now it is the difference between two measurements through zero exists. So ratio will be teacher to student ratio. Say 1:10. One teacher is allotted to 10 students. Your height, your age, your weekly food, your spending. You create a pie diagram and you see that how your spending is done on a day-to-day basis. So part of your spending might go on your food items, part of your spending might go on your traveling, then your phone bills, then your other desires, then the luxuries which you afford once in a blue moon, and so on and forth. Now, communication approach. Now, before designing a questionnaire, a researcher needs to define a communication approach. The language, the wording of questions, introduction, instrument layout, conclusion will also change with the communication approach. There are several communication approaches which will be discussed in the next slide. So now, communication approach is very dependent on how you would want your studies to be taken seriously or how your studies would reflect in the amount of data which you collect. So, while going for a proper questionnaire method, it is important that we have a proper communication level. So, if today we were supposed to conduct a research where we have asked our participants to come and to participate in the questionnaire. So, if I say tomorrow, all of you assemble at 10 a.m. in the morning, I'll hand you the questionnaire. You can just mark it and you may leave it or you may submit it on the spot. Now, instead of 10 o'clock, if I reach at 10 p.m., 10 a.m., I switch to 10 p.m. What happens? Your research will go for a toss in the first place. Then, what will happen is, if while evaluating you find that the questions are not appropriately worded, even then the study loses its edge. Then the layout, if it's not impressive, if there are small font sizes which is not readable, you lose it out there. Then your conclusions and everything keeps on changing with the changes in the communication approach. Now, what are the changes in the communication approach? Now, while selecting a communication data, we go through these approach. Now, this is an instrumentation design which is done. So, the first is the observational approach. For example, if today I decide to buy a house. So first, I will observe the various ways in which my buying of the house will affect the overall working of my home. So being a researcher, I place the question to my family members or to the members of the uh, society for the company I am working. So basically, if I have to simplify it, let's assume that my job is to sell a house costing a phenomenal rate, say 6 crores. Now, my observation approach. If I were to conduct the approach in, say, a metropolitan city, then through my observation, firstly, I will see the condition, the behaviors, the events and processes. Now this part is very important. First of all, let me observe the overall conditions of selling a flat in a two-tier city like Guwahati and a metropolitan city like Mumbai. Now, I am aware of the condition that in Mumbai, the cost of living is definitely higher than the cost of living in Guwahati. So what is the behavior of the people? In Assam, people have a lot of surplus land. Usually they don't give up their patriarchal homes. So what happens in that event, I process that if I go and tell someone from Assam to buy a house for 6 crores in Assam itself, they would just laugh me off and say, are you sure you're talking about 60 lakhs or 6 crores? If I go to the elitists or the mid-range working people of Mumbai and I say that a house is available for 6 crores, the calculation would be that, okay, so can you give us some discount? Now what is happening? There's a change in the mental process that, okay, probably the Mumbaikars can afford a 6 crore home. Why? Cost of living is high. So they are, because of scarcity of land, they are aware of the fact that usually you don't get houses, and if you get, that would be the normal market rate between 3 to 6 crores. So what happens is, you'll start processing that if I take a loan, in how many years will I be able to pay off the loan? Whereas what's happening in Guwahati, I am taken as a comic character who's trying to sell a house for 6 crores where the real estate prices for a good house over there is between 60 lakhs to max 1 crore, which is also not heard of unless they are giving you a palatial bungalow with tea gardens and all. So your investigative question starts. So investigative question is, how do you sell a house for 6 crores? In Mumbai. Now Mumbai being a fast-paced city, what do? You start going through the social website means. Now in the social website, what will you do? In every Facebook page, in every Twitter handle, you'll start selling your idea. Say for example a Tata brand, or say Oberoi brand or a Rustomjee brand. They are all trying to sell a house for 6 crores. So now you start saying that our house has this facilities. You will, for that 6 crore house, you'll have your own individual parking, you will have your swimming pool, you'll have your amphitheaters, you'll have your reading library, golf course, spas and all kinds of facilities inside that township. In Assam, will it work out? No. People will say, we have so many forests, we have so many open field grounds, why do we need to have an additional builder coming and saying that, okay, I'm building you 34-story flat? Firstly, that will also not be sellable. That idea won't sell because tectonically Assam is placed in the earthquake-prone zone. So what is happening is these questions are leading you to the attitude, motivation, intention and expectations of the person who are buying the house. The attitude of the people from Guwahati, the Assamese people, will be like, this female has lost it totally. She's trying to sell a house which people of Assam will never buy. It's sheer luxury and a wastage of money. The motivation factor will be zero in the place like Assam. But in Mumbai, probably if you give certain amount of discount, people will like, oh, under this friend, I might have a house. How great is that? I'll have a house in Omkar where popular film stars reside. I'll have a house in Rustamji. I'll have a popular house in Oberoi. So what will happen? There will be an elevation on my social status as well. So the intention for ethnic people, the intention is what? I do not need the house. There's no question of me having an intention to buy the house. In Mumbai, the intention will be, okay, it will put me on a higher probably social strata, that you are affording a house in a prime real estate agency. Your expectation increases that, okay, if I am able to afford a house in, say, a good brand, a mid-range high brand of in housing society, my next motive is to go to the higher end of the same group. So now all of these are done passed through the communication approach. Now the communication approach can be done in three ways. It can be a self-administered survey. You mail the people that, okay, we are planning to build a township in Mumbai, or we're planning to build a township in Guwahati. Are you interested? If so, kindly mail us, kindly intercept us, and the computer does a phenomenal work in aiding and elevating that process. Now, then you see the location in which the house is placed. So if the house is placed in the outskirts, you'll say better connectivity is being developed. If it's not developed, that's the lie you can give to people to lure people to buy your house. Or you can say that in a place like Assam, we can make sure that it is centrally located so that you have access to the whatsoever small malls which you have in that place. So what's happening is all of these are being chalked out. Next comes the stage of phone interview. So it's human administered, it can be computer administered, call centers can be there. So during your work hours, based on the responses of interest, you call up the persons, you ask them to drop a number. Say in Facebook, you tell them, kindly drop a number and a time when we can contact you. So you call up, then madam, are you looking for a house in Rustamji? Are you looking for a house in Chapurji, Palonji Constructions, or so on and so forth. So telephonic interview will give an idea on which category of people to focus on. Your focus group comes into consideration now. This focus group will what do? They will aid you to target that, okay, in Mumbai, if a person is earning between a CPA of or say an in-hand salary between say 70 to 1 lakh a month, probably they can buy the house in the elite areas. So in Guwahati, what will happen if people is earning between 15 to 50,000? Okay, probably they might give it a thought. So then you note down their responses, you call them to your office, you brainwash them with good marketing techniques, and who knows, someone might decide to buy your 6 crore project. Now, personal interview is the process where all of this brainwashing is happening. So you have interview in a controlled environment where you give a presentation, you invite the people and you charm the people with your presentation skills. Now what's happening? You are showing a demo where in that you are showing how the house structure would come up, your parks, your luxury life and everything. The square feet, You start off with that, how many square feet it would comprise of, then what could be used, which room could be used for what, and so on. Then you have all of these pre-scheduled and intercepted. Now then you also have participant control environment, and in that participant control environment you see how the participants are also quipping into your process that okay, if the metro line is created, I have no problem buying a house as far as say Thane. From there I can easily travel to say Andheri. So that is how, and you intercept it. Now basically what is happening is the distribution is done, then the voice is controlled, and there is a face-to-face interaction. All of these communication will let you know whether it is a good idea to invest, to buy, or to sell a house of 6 crores. The next is the questionnaire strategy. Now, the questionnaire strategy is nothing but it would entail you of knowing what type of data is needed to answer the management question. What communication approach would you like to be used? Should the questions be structured, unstructured, or some combinations, or the questions be disguised or undisguised? The whole lot of questions. Let's go back to the college example. So what type of data is needed to answer the management questions? If we go back, recall the college thing, we need to know where is the problem in the, say the factory example, where is the problem which is leading to the less revenue of the factory. Now what communication approach will you use? You'll use the questionnaire method, and you will see how people respond to the various questionnaire methods, which again can be based on personal interviews, which can be involved on one-to-one interaction, which can be involved on a structured method, which can be involved in a unstructured method. So basically you are towing in on structured, unstructured, combination of both, or you want to silently monitor it in a disguised form, or you want to openly monitor it in an undisguised form. Now the types of questionnaire. Now types of questionnaires are basically structured questionnaire, unstructured questionnaire, and a combination questionnaire. Now structured questionnaire is a response in which the respondents select a response from those given. Do you know what a scooter is? Yes or no? Yes. Have you heard about the brand called Vespa? Yes. Have you ever rode a scooter? No. What is, will you be able to afford a scooter? And so on and so forth. Unstructured response, respondents create a response. So if I ask you, what is your family income? You are creating a response that my family income yearly suppose goes to 50k, and so on. Then I'll ask you, what is your age group? You are replying, your age is between 25 to 30 years. What is your goal? Or in what usage would you use a scooter for? I will use this scooter to ferry around God knows how many people, and so on. So like that. So you are using a combination method involved. You are using the questionnaire. You are using both structured and unstructured questions to get the desired answer. The next we come to the disguised and undisguised questions by degree of structure. Now what is the structure? The structure can be proper structured, where responses are given only through the selected response which the interviewer provides, the unstructured response, or a combination of both. So what happens in undisguised questionnaire? The direct method is employed here. So typically in a structured survey, the typical descriptive survey with straightforward structured questions are usually asked in undisguised. Like for example, we ask you, That have you heard about the brand name Ariel? Yes or no? Unstructure this survey with open-ended questions to discover new answers. So we'll ask you, do you want to know about a new detergent in town which will wash away your uh, stains in a jiffy? Say we are launching the product Vanish. So your answer will be yes. The next is this product is named Vanish and it gives you the guarantee that within minutes it washes off your stains. Would you like to have a demo of the same? Again, yes or no. Now, indirect questions, the disguised questions. Example, survey interview to measure brand A's image versus competitive brands or brand recall. This is an unaided recall. For example, brand A, say Parachute. Parachute sells you coconut oil. Now, Parachute is selling another oil called the hibiscus oil. Now, the hibiscus oil was manufactured as the Joba Kusum oil. Now, that brand A's image of Parachute, who is actually dealing only in coconut oil, is renowned for the supply of coconut oil, is suddenly jumping on to expand the hair industry business with the introduction of hibiscus oil. So, hibiscus oil is already produced, you'll remember, with an old brand which will supply you the hibiscus oil in the name of Joba Kusum oil. So, what is happening is, you are doing a disguise survey. Now, in disguise survey, sometimes what happens is there is also a replacement of the sample. So, I will take 1 tube of Joba Kusum oil, 1 tube of oil, hibiscus oil manufactured by Parachute. Now, I'll exchange the bottles and I'll let you know, I'll let you use it and you will let me know whether it is the same, there's a difference in quality and so on. So, this is the indirect method. So, in the unstructured way, the example can be the projection techniques used mostly for exploratory research. So, in exploratory research, you keep on, for example, you need to know the cognitive impact of sleep on a person. So, what will you do? You will not begin by directly asking the question how many hours you are sleeping or are you sleeping well enough. You will first start your exploratory methods. That is, you will see whether the person has prominent dark circles, whether the person suffers from fatigue, whether the person is able to employ his proper stamina in the deliverance of skills. So, this is how, using the direct and indirect method, by ways of the structure, we conduct our questionnaire. Now, the difference between the disguised and undisguised questionnaire is further illustrated in this slide. So, the disguised questionnaire happens when people are unaware that they are being observed and they wait for them to behave naturally. I switch off both the oils. Instead of coconut oil, for example, I might even color the coconut oil, put in some additives and say this is hibiscus oil. So, conducted is happening in 2 ways, hidden camera or mystery shoppers also. So, the hidden camera will let me know how you are reacting to the oil. You might just sniff it and say, oh, this is adulterated. You might do what? You might not know the difference and continue using that oil. Then we have mystery shoppers. For example, you are having a say bar which is saying that happy hours is happening from Friday from this hours. So what your mystery shopper will do, he tries to be objective and records accurately what is happening in the bar. So are you genuinely starting the happy hours at the scheduled time or not? And it is done by personal visit. Now, how long is in the wait in the queue was, the number of till open, how long it takes, where there's someone to assist you with the process, or whether you were able to get hold of the happy hours offers or not, and so on, how informed the staff were. This is what the mystery shoppers will do, and this is the disguised effect. Now we come to the undisguised effect. Now in undisguised effect, what will happen is people are aware that they are being observed. So either they are being told or it is obvious that they are being observed. So there is this very interesting report which I had read on how the Michelin stars are rated. So we know that any chef who has a Michelin star attached to his or her designation is a chef for excellence. So there are many movies which show how the persons might go and tell you that, okay, I'm going to have a review of your restaurant, so please do the needful. So the head chef will prepare the best of dishes. They will make sure someone is there to carry on with the entree, the starters, the main course, and so on. So the process is well distributed because someone is doing it. But there are also cases where they will not inform, but you understand from the characteristics in the way they are behaving. So you know that, okay, even if we are not told, the mannerisms in which they are behaving, like the Michelin star restaurants, when they go to give the star rating, you'll usually find people always in a formal dress code. They will ask you the toughest dishes to present. They will call in for the chef and so on and forth. They'll note the service. They'll take longer than usual time sitting and observing people. So all of these would go on the same. Again, there's a lot of discussion over how much an awareness of a person being observed affects their behavior. If a judge who is about to honor a restaurant or a chef with a Michelin star, of course there is a huge amount of preparation. So usually that restaurant might not serve good food, but that day they will make exceptional efforts to produce a phenomenally good dish. So it is affecting their normal get up. So the effect, some suggest the effect is marginal. Others believe it could mean the observer could seriously bias the behavior patterns. Not every chef would cook a meal worthy for a Michelin star daily. So ethical matters are also to be considered in terms of how ethical it is when you observe people without their consent or to observe their natural behavior. So there's this line which says, "Do not judge me unless you walk upon my shoes." So ethics plays a very important role. You might not know why on that particular day a person is not delivering what he has promised to deliver. So that is a very important aspect which we look forward to while doing a disguised and undisguised questionnaire. Now we come to the next slide. Now, what are the general principles in a questionnaire design? So basically, in a questionnaire design, there are principles which will let you know on how you want your questionnaire design to take place. So firstly, the first step out of the 7 steps is you choose what you want to cover in a survey. So if you want to cover, say, the number of users who are comfortable using 2-wheelers to 4-wheelers, you will identify that factor and you will make sure that you do not mince your words. For you might just ask them, do you like using 2-wheelers because it is easily accessible on road, or do you like using 2-wheelers because you cannot afford a 4-wheeler? Similarly, you'll not mince words in asking a person who has purchased a recent 4-wheeler. You'll ask them, what made you do the shift from a 2-wheeler to a 4-wheeler suddenly? Are you able to bear the massive change it has got in your buying Do you know the impact it has got in your family because you purchased an expensive car, and so on. Then you begin with asking one question at a time. Now, do not ask too many questions, like say in news channels, in trauma site, we see reporters coming and asking, what is your feeling, how are you feeling right now, what do you want to say to our people or our viewers who are listening you, and so on and forth, how are you feeling? That is not an appropriate question to be asked to someone who is undergoing a trauma. So you should only ask one question at a time, and that question should suffice for the timing to give you authentic data. You need to be flexible with your opinions. Otherwise, what happens is people will not answer your questionnaire. They'll just put a blank and walk off. Now, it's very important whether you want open-ended or close-ended question. Open-ended question is open in nature. It will give rise to more interpretations. It is very flexible in nature. Close-ended question is a tough choice. Whether you want to know, you pin down on that thing and you want a rigid answer. Yes, no. Are you able to afford? Yes or no. Answer me. So there's no scope of that extra analysis that, okay, by cost cutting on certain factors, we are able to buy the desired car and so on. Nothing works out there. Then you have to choose the right audience. It is important to know your audience. You cannot go and ask a doctor directly that, are you able to afford 2 cars because you are doing double practice? No. You have to choose the right tool, and choosing a right tool is as important as choosing the right mode, the right wording, the right communication approach without offending the person, the respondent who is answering to your questions at the end of the day. Now we come to specific principles while designing a questionnaire. Now, when we design a questionnaire, there are many principles which we have to take into consideration while designing the questionnaire. The first is the principle where we would want to know whether we have developed a questionnaire with ample thought. So the first principle is you should spend adequate amount of time for developing the questions. The questions should be developed with time, and I do not mean a delay factor. I do not mean the aspect in which your question is just nothing but a pathetically factic exchange of your own incapability to form a question on time. So you need time to develop questions in a way that you are able to get the maximum output. Then the question should be based on proper content. You should make the questions as valid as possible, as reliable as possible, and as balanced as possible. So the questions which you are asking, you have to make it valid. You cannot go and simply ask someone that, are you competent enough to shell 9 lakhs at one go to buy a car? You cannot. It's not a valid question. The reliability of the question. If I'm able to afford, I have 9 lakhs of rupees, does it mean that I'll spend the 9 lakhs on buying the car? Where is the reliability of my question? And of course, there is no balance in the question. So you should keep in mind the validity, the reliability, and the balance of the question. Then comes the various methods of testing the questions. You write down the questions that test skills other than recall. So question is not about what you had seen before and you recall it. It is also about the ways in which you would use an individual skill in getting the desired answers. Then, while framing the question, it has to be ensured that they are unambiguous, simple in language, and brief in much as possible. So the questions should be unambiguous. There should be no vagueness in the questions. Then the question should be of a simple nature. For example, if I am teaching you English literature and in that, suppose I am teaching you Dr. Foster's, and if I ask you a question like, do you think psychomachia exists in Dr. Foster's? Yes or no? Firstly, psychomachia is unambiguous. You might probably end up searching in a thesaurus what psychomachia is, because it's not simple and it is, you are trying to brief it up, but the briefing is not happening. So psychomachia is nothing but the victory of good over evil, right? The victory of the good over evil is nothing but psychomachia. So you should not use terms, you should not throw any kind of ambiguous terms and let the respondent judge. No, that will take time and eventually the respondent might give up. Then each of the questions should evaluate some specific content area or learning outcome. So I have dropped you the question of psychomachia, and I will not ask you what is psychomachia just because I want to examine how intelligent you are to understand what psychomachia is. But probably I will drop you the question that in Dr. Foster's, have you heard of the concept of psychomachia? Do you think the concept of, in bracket I'll put, good over evil, victory of good over evil, do you think it's relatable to the normal human processes in the current day society? Do you think that in current society only the good wins over the evil? So like that, we'll set strategic questions in order to analyze and meet the specific goals of our study. Now, wording is very important. Words form a larger part of your questionnaire. All that we are speaking right now on how to implement the questionnaire would be only possible if you write them or print them down in words. Now, words have an impact on the stability of the survey questions. So, the stability of your survey questions lies on the fact that when you introduce or tap a different concept or reality or emotional level, you get a different response. Same concept of a word, say, obfuscate. Now, if I were to tell you, when you answer the questions of my questionnaire, do not obfuscate yourself between the concepts of psychomachia and good over evil. Okay? So now what is happening is, someone might think that, okay, I am not understanding the word obfuscate. Probably this questionnaire is not according to my standard and I might end up giving wrong answers. So what is happening here is, the person is on a different plane altogether. You are trying to test the reasoning abilities of a person's attitude, and here the person is trying to see the test from a perspective where you are measuring his work IQ, or you're measuring how strong he is in his thesauric IQ. So it's very essential when we introduce a word, we have to introduce it in a sensitive manner. We have to make it as lucid, as clear and transparent as possible. So at the end of the day, when you present a questionnaire, the conception of the questionnaire and the responses that you get after administering your questionnaire should both be crystal clear. So this forms an essential process of the analysis plan, as it facilitates the construction of a questionnaire that will help to obtain a complete information in its most suitable form. Now, how will you form the wording? So this is simply an illustration on how to use the principle of wording. The first is the nature of the variable will determine what kind and number of questions will be asked. That is the ranking, rating or dichotomous. So the ranking will be based on your grade, say, or the rating will be based on your satisfaction that you attain by using a particular product, or dichotomous, whether you like the product or you don't like the product. There are two extremities, yes or no. The wording should be simple, easy and appropriate. In this very slide, people are acquainted to the word ranking, people are acquainted to the word rating, but probably some of the people might not be aware of the word dichotomous. So it is clear that in that point of time, the researcher should make it clear on what terms he or she is using, and the words should be simple, easy and appropriate as much as possible. Then close-ended questions will be used with the intention to have ease and enhance comparability. That is, close-ended questions will be used to get the desired response in a comfortable manner without straining more on unnecessary details. Then add both positively as well as negatively worded questions. That is, you need to use not, isn't it, is not it. You use both positive and negative words. Now always avoid double-barreled, ambiguous, recall-dependent, leading or loaded questions. Do away with all forms of questionnaires which test your capability, which has double meaning, which has, dependency on whether you are able to recall what I had said earlier or not. Do away with it. The sequence of questions in the questionnaire should be from general to specific and easy to more difficult. It should also have a funnel approach. Funnel approaches, have you seen a funnel or have you seen a blotting paper? It takes away the excess and gives you only what is desired in a concentrated, clear manner while doing away with the spillage. So, this is very important. Now, all this while we were talking about a questionnaire. Now, what is the essential of a good questionnaire? The questionnaire should be comparatively short and simple. That is, the size of the questionnaire should be kept minimum. I hand over a 5-page questionnaire and I tell you, by tomorrow night get back to me. You can either mail me, you don't need to come. Will you be able to do it? Obviously not. You might have other priorities, it's taking time. You don't find it necessary because the research is necessary for the researcher. It's not necessary for you. So you prioritize and you finish it as much as you are able to, and then you send it. So what is happening is accurate data is not being received. So keep it short and simple. Questions should proceed in a logical sequence, moving from easy to the more difficult. You suddenly don't begin with a question like, as a female, do you think you can buy a car? No. There should be a logical sequence. Like, what is your name? What is your age? What is your gender? Do you think gender discrimination exists? Do women earn more than men? Is there workplace equality? Is there workplace equity? There's a difference between equality and equity. So in a logical sequence, you are moving from the highest point of the pyramid to the lowest point. Personal and intimate questions should be left to the end. So you might say there is equality, but there is no equity. And the questions like, okay, in places where there are gender stereotypes, do you think you are favored more than your brother, or you're favored more than your husband? all of these would lead to a different kind of response altogether. The person might get offended, and there goes your research. Technical terms and vague expressions capable of different interpretations should be avoided in questionnaire. For example, let's take another term, chiaroscuro. Technical term of chiaroscuro is that chiaroscuro implies finding light in darkness. So when you draw and you take a very dark color, and with that dark color, suddenly too much of darkness could suddenly give you a gleam of light. So it's a technical term, but it's a vague expression, and it will lead to various kinds of interpretations which will deal with different dimensions. For example, for an artist, a chiaroscuro means find the mode in a particular easel where when you're playing with dark colors, you suddenly find a lighter version of the color. Now what is happening? For a philosopher, okay, the soul will go through a phase of darkness, and through extreme meditation and good thoughts and good vibration, the soul reaches its chiaroscuro shade, thereby gaining enlightenment. Is it necessary? No. So it's very important. Questions may be dichotomous, yes or no, multiple choice, or open-ended. Multiple choice, some people like it a lot. Personally, I don't like it because I always get confused between the options. So yes. Then open-ended questions being difficult to analyze should be avoided in the questionnaire to the extent possible. Then questions affecting the sentiments of respondents. Big no. No asking whether you like beef in India. No, it will hurt the religious sentiments. Adequate space should be provided in the questionnaire to help editing and tabulation. We do not want scribbles. Some people are there who will put tick mark, who will put cross mark as well. No, we need to give them a proper space, so if there is any discrepancy, it can be gently noted down. Then there should always be provisions for indication of uncertainty. Example, do not know, no preference, and so on. So the thing is, do you like Knorr soup? Yes, no. Do you buy it daily? Yes, no. Are you bored of the flavors? Yes, no. Now there should be a space where you can write, I do not know. There's no preference. I'm okay with whatever is given. So there should be that space. Brief directions with regards to filling the questionnaire should be given in the questionnaire itself. That is, here you will give the instruction. Do not sign on both the set of the questionnaire. Choose only one option which you find appropriate. Do not write comment or whatever you want to say, you prove it there. Finally, the physical appearance of the questionnaire should be also very attractive. If your questionnaire is not attractive enough, it will get rolled in someone's hand, and at the very next moment, before you can even blink your eye, it's on the street. Now, types of questions and communication instruments. Basically, there are three types: administrative type of questions, the classification type of questions, and the target questions. The administrative type of question includes the respondent identification, the interviewer or administrator identification, date, time, and place of the interview. The watchman suddenly cannot go and tell me, okay, I'm taking your interview. Why will I do so? I would want to meet the superior or the boss with whom I have been told to go and meet and tell about my credentials. So that is where the need for the administrative questions rise. The classification questions includes respondent characteristics in terms of socio-demographic and behavioral information. This includes sex, age, family size, household income, etc. Then there are target questions. Target questions aims at asking questions that directly addresses to the management's problems. So, in classification questions, The socio-demographic and behavioral situations are taken into consideration. Like if we are displacing certain employees, we need to see what is their age, will they be able to slog. If the employee has stayed in our institute for say 10-15 years, will he be able to immediately adjust? What repercussions will he have for changing the job? His loyalty will be questioned, our allegiance towards the employee will be seen, and so on. So the target question will lead you to find out whether these responses lead you to find an amicable solution. Now, why should you ask a question? Now, it is important to understand that a lengthy questionnaire increases expenditure. One printout, colored printout, of course you need to have a colored printout because you need to make it look very attractive. How much? 5 rupees. Questionnaire which is of 5 prints, 25 rupees. Which one will you prefer? The 5 rupee printout, it's attractive, it gives you condensed information, and so on. It also demands too much of time and energy from the respondents, which might lead to inaccuracy. Thus, it is important to ask these things. That is, what is the information we are particularly interested? What will happen if I remove that particular question? Is it possible that the information in any way is helping me solve the research problem? Can this question be inferred from other questions? So, if I am asking you the gender, male or female, that itself would make me know the reason that, okay, now if I say if gender stereotypes exist in your working place as a man or woman / in the question itself, I would know. So there is no need to include another set of questions which establishes the fact that, okay, you belong to the gender F, you feel discriminated or you do not feel discriminated, and you are a girl, you are a lady, you are a married woman. No need. No one will go. Incomplete or unfocused questions. The examples are, is this product usable? Is the product ready for release or not? And these questions are incomplete and vague. Is the product usable? What product is usable? How am I supposed to answer what product you're looking for? Is the product ready for release or does it need more work? I don't even know which product you're talking about. How am I supposed to give you an answer? So these questions are incomplete and vague, but they neither state, nor imply how to measure or quantify the results. The next is the merits and demerits of the multiple choice questions. So they have their own merits. The multiple choice questions are effective because they give you a quick check. The objective is basically used in marketing methods. They can be marked by computer, they can be web administered, then it's useful for self-assessment and feedback, and it is easy to administer to large masses. Disadvantages of this method: this typically used to excess recall, as there is a danger of testing only one level of question. So you do not get extra input from it because you are not able to have a frame of discussion, and that can hinder your progress. So students may guess the correct answer and therefore lessen the validity of the test collected. Solution: you can use negative question marks so that you can monitor the grades which you are giving. Then MCQs cannot test oral or extensive written skills. They may have a variety of assessment types other than MCQs. So if I tell you what is the powerhouse of the cell, you'll quickly tick mark mitochondria. But in that same thing, if I ask you why is mitochondria called the powerhouse of the cell, you might not be able to explain me the ADP and phosphate reaction. So how do you ask a precise question? Why do you do this? How do you do this? Get a subtask structure, then ask about the subtask. Then why do you do it this way than some other way, and what has to be done to understand the sequencing requirements? So basically, do you have any questions? Is an ineffective and close-ended question. Of course, you may have questions of your personal life, private life, but I'm asking you questions about this particular topic. So what do I ask? I'm effective way of asking is this: what questions can I ask for you now? So do you have any questions? Again, I'm going to pause now and allow you to comment. That's more effective. Does that make sense? I know I've shared a lot of information. Now you please tell me how should we proceed? What are your reactions? So did you understand the feature? So how will you ask? Tell me target, what sort of income can you envision if the professional sales every month are done this way, or what impact would it have in the business? So what you like to schedule a product or demo? Again you ask the target what works best for him. Then again, I noticed that you just downloaded a particular work. Do you find it informative and insightful? So again here we see that I noticed you downloaded XYZ book. What was your purpose for downloading that book? Then we have this concept of recall in research. Now recall is nothing but your remembrance. The brain is a super organ. I am always fascinated by brain studies. So the brain has this innate capacity of taking in lots of information. Then the brain starts filtering in the information. It takes in all the necessary information over a period of time. It does away with the excess or surplus information. So we now know that the Honda Civic car has been discontinued. So the Honda people, they conducted a test where they showed the image of a Honda Civic car. Now, post the survey, they again asked the people, have you seen a Honda Civic recently? Your answer of saying it yes or no would imply that whether you are able to recall it. Okay, I did see a Honda Civic on the internet, but I haven't seen it on the roads for a long period of time. So is the production discontinued? Is the production still continuing? So your response, whatever these people have responded, made them understand the concept of recall in 400 users, that from within 14 days, the frequency to which they remembered the Honda Civic car was different from the day one when they saw the first Honda Civic car. Decay theories. So what is happening? Your memories are decaying. Memories fade away or decay if it is not used. Then time plays a very critical role, and in order to retrieve into declines with time after original encoding, you need to have this decay theories. That is what is happening in decay, that after the process of filtration, you tend to forget things. So something which is familiar to you now may not be familiar to you post that period. Then we have various response strategies. Now response strategies are nothing but the strategies which you employ on the basis of the nature of samples, the nature of the information that you need to analyze the samples. Now the response strategies can be free response, dichotomous response, yes or no, paired response, multiple choice responses, checklist based responses, and their rating and ranking is also analyzed. Now the source of existing questions for testing of individual questions, drafting and refining of the instruments are also analyzed for the particular purpose. So what is happening in response strategy is you are structuring your questionnaire in such a method that you get the appropriate response. For example, in a risk study, how will we do our response strategy? So this is our risk response. Risk response can be either a positive risk response or a negative risk response. In positive risk response, you have exploitation, then the sharing, enhancing, and acceptance bit. Whereas in the negative risk response, you have acceptance, transference, mitigation, avoidance. It goes the other cycle. Then again, in social media, how would you give your responses? So first, again, responses will be either positive or negative. So if it is negative, what happens? And if it is positive, what happens? So first we ask you, do you want to respond? You either say yes or not. So if there's a no response, end of story. Do you want to respond? Yes. Can you add value? Yes or no. Then you share your response in kind and share, and if it's a no, you end it by thanking the person. Then again, in the other aspect, we see that we take the response. We again ask if you're willing to share, and if he has said that okay, he has understood the message and he is willing to share it with us, then we say if you were happy with your choice. If he's a unhappy customer, then you decide the complaint, and to whom are you going to give the complaint. And if he says yes, then you take reasonable action to why the customer's issue was fixed or not, or what action has been taken. Does the customer deserve more information? You keep on updating, following up with the customer. You explain what changes it has got, and finally, once everything is done, you send a mail whether the person has been able to address to your complaints and queries properly. If not, what can he further do? And then you give a closure report. Now in medical services also we use the same response method, questionnaire. So this is a response study of the Zika virus. Now 3 stages have gone: the surveillance, the response, and the research aspect. The surveillance aspect was to see how the prototype of the mosquito which is causing the Zika virus is, how it caused the virus disease, what are the neurological symptoms and congenital malformations which happen in an individual excuse me, suffering from the Zika disease. Now the response is, you go to communities and you ask them, you go to the communities and you ask people about the risk of this. Then you increase the effects, and then you see how the effects of the medicines which you are administering for controlling the Zika virus is able to control the disease or not. You see how the differences are seen specifically in women who are expecting, and how pregnant women and children are affected by the Zika virus. The research will then fast track the information, and then you start on with your clinical processes in order to eradicate the Zika virus. Now this is the basic design or layout or formation which is necessary in order to give you a thorough understanding on how attractive or how unattractive your research questionnaire should be. The first thing in graphic designing is lines. So lines are very important. Line is nothing but a distance between 2 points. So there are many types of lines: straight line, linear line, and so on, curved lines. So line is very important. Then you decide on the shape. The lines will conjoin to form the shape. Now color is very important. Darker colors leads to less recognition. Brighter colors, some might find tacky. Pastel shades, some might find it very soothing, or some might find it very drab. Then the texturization, what material you are using, would also give the researchers a status of the funding to the respondent. Bad paper quality, respondent might not be even interested. Good paper quality, he'll know that you are investing too much of time, energy, money, because you are serious about the research and you want to get it done properly. So size, the spacing, the value, and everything which goes into an attractive formation of your research design is seen in this aspect. Now there are problems which comes in midway. So how will you solve these problems? Basically, you try to build a rapport, then you redesign the question process, you explore alternatives, use other methods, and pretest. So you build a rapport, that is, you become familiar with the persons, the respondents' families, their income, their everything. Redesign the question in order to fit to the attributes of your respondents. Then you explore alternatives. A particular research design may not work for someone, but it might work well for someone else. So use other methods and pretest, that is the repetition until you get a bug-free research methodology. Now, for example, a difficult social problem has to be resolved. So first you find out the root cause of your problem, and this would require you to efficiently deal with the data. Then the process is driven, and then you have a model-based analysis. So difficult social problems, say child marriage. Child marriage can be solved only by the root causes. Both men and women, the boy and the girl, should be given equal education. Do this reliable and efficiently. Efficiency is required. You need to go to the rural areas, brainwash the people on why Beti Padhao and Badhao is important than just proclaiming it in pamphlets. Then process-driven problem solving. So you start this andolan, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. What is happening here is you're trying to eradicate that only boys can excel. Girls are equally at par. Then you form a model-based analysis. This is usually done by large government organizations and is carried on a mass basis. For example, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and all. Now we come to the schedule method. Now in the schedule method, the data is very similar to the data which is collected for the questionnaire, but the only difference is it is filled by enumerators. Now who are the enumerators? The enumerators are the persons who have been specifically appointed for the purpose to respond. Now this requires the enumerators to be intelligently skilled with ample perseverance in order to cross-examine any difficulties. However, apart from being time-consuming and expensive, it also requires a stringent process of finding a suitable enumerator who can give you a accurate study. And this method is employed by government agencies where they need to find out the situation, but there are also a large number of illiterate masses who needs to be catered to as well. Now what's the difference between a scheduled method and a questionnaire? So in a scheduled method, the response is high. In a questionnaire method, the non-response is high, whereas in schedule it is low because the enumerator will make sure that you reply. Then in questionnaire, many may not return it at all. In schedules, you are bound to get all your answers. There is no there's biasness due to non-response, and bias and cheating is also somewhat seen in schedules. Now questionnaire, it is not always clear who replies, but in schedule you know who is replying to your answer. The questionnaire method is slow and some do not return it at all, whereas in schedule method the data is collected well on time. Then what is a good questionnaire? Now all this while we were discussing about a good questionnaire. Now a good questionnaire essentially implies what? A good questionnaire implies that there is a translation of the objectives into specific questions. The standardization of questions and response are done in proper categories. It should incorporate cooperation and motivation. It should serve as a permanent record of research. It can speed up the data analysis process, and it can also serve as a basis for reliability and variability. So what is happening here is the objective and the research study which is to be conducted is specified in this method. So specifying will lead you to get questions which will make you ask the respondents only what is relevant, and you will do away with irrelevant responses. So in order to get a good answer, you need to do what? You need to foster a cooperation between the members of the society. Now this serves as a permanent record of research. You can go back to your questionnaires which you have done and conduct a survey that would act as your primary data. You can extend from there, lead into newer insights, and that would act as your secondary data. It also speeds up the data analysis process, and you can also serve as a basis of reliability and variability of the measures. So in a good questionnaire, if it encompasses all of these characteristics, only then you are sure that you can get a good amount of response, and you can carry forward with your research process. Now, what is the role of a good schedule? A good schedule is something which is easily communicated. We know that when we are using a schedule, we are hiring a enumerator. Now, enumerator is there because if we are to understand about the workings of, say, a particular product in a particular pocket of the country, then the enumerator will go and ask the particular question. So if we are testing a polio product, the enumerator will go and easily communicate the benefits of using polio, the benefits of administering polio to children, what happens if you don't feed the children with polio droplets, and so on. So there is flexible, easy to update and change. So what if polio is eradicated and you need better medicines, you need medicines for treating other ailments? So then it is flexible, easy to update and change because the enumerator will take note of such things. And he has a commitment to the projective. So the enumerator will not provide his or her responses unnecessarily, but the enumerator will provide responses which he has been asked, which he has been trained, which is why in order to find an enumerator, you need to have people with the set of skills which you desire. Now he'll show the staff interrelationship. He will show you the relationship between the respondee and the relationship between the questionnaire, kept on a calendar basis. So he will go visit it from a monthly basis, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, whatever. He forces easy deadlines, includes review and correction, allows for spillage, has office correlation, and he allows for activities beyond contractual, and also a good graphic presentation of whatever is asked is done in the schedule method. So basically, a schedule method, the enumerator will fill in the gap of the person who is asking the questions. He will go on behalf of the questionnaire and he will see to it that the respondents will respond to the questions and the respondents will deliver the desired questions on time. So what happens? It allows for spillage, there is a flexibility, and apart from that, there is a proper correlation between the respondents and the person who are testing the questionnaire. So this would in turn give a good graphic idea on how the process is going. So with this, by drawing the comparison between a questionnaire and schedule and by engaging into how each of these are different and how each of these aid in the process, we come to the end of our presentation. Thank you.